Senator John Neely Kennedy leaned back in his chair, eyes narrowed, microphone on. With a smirk, he looked over at Representative Jasmine Crockett, waiting for her to finish her statement. "That's cute," he interrupted, waving a dismissive hand. "But do you even understand what jurisprudence means, ma'am?" Laughter rippled through part of the chamber, but the air thickened. Jasmine paused, then slowly looked up, calm but burning with fury inside. The room fell awkwardly quiet as Kennedy leaned forward, thinking he'd scored points. Jasmine remained still, letting silence stretch. Her eyes locked onto Kennedy's like lasers. "Senator," she said smoothly, her tone surgical, "I'd explain jurisprudence to you, but I'd have to use smaller words." A gasp escaped from the gallery. Even Kennedy's smile faltered, his confidence now cracking like thin ice under heavy boots. Kennedy blinked, taken aback by the precision of her reply. Crockett wasn't done. "Your condescension," she continued, "is as outdated as the laws you misquote." A hush fell over the chamber. She calmly placed her papers down. "You think you can insult me into silence, but I'm not here for your comfort. I'm here for the Constitution." Her words echoed, sharp and unrelenting, and Kennedy looked like he'd swallowed a lemon. Senator Graham adjusted in his seat. Senator Booker raised an eyebrow. Even the stenographer paused for a breath. Crockett leaned in. "Do you mock every woman who challenges you, or just the ones who make you nervous?" she asked. Murmurs erupted again. Kennedy stammered, "You're twisting my words." Crockett folded her arms. "No, Senator. I'm simply giving them context. Something you seem to avoid like facts." The audience was stunned. Crockett, cool and composed, turned pages in her folder. "It's no wonder people lose faith in government," she said, "when someone elected to lead prefers to ridicule rather than reason." Kennedy tried to laugh it off, but it rang hollow. Crockett's presence grew. She wasn't merely responding. She was dismantling the smugness brick by brick, voice by voice. Kennedy reached for his pen like a lifeline. Crockett didn't miss a beat. "If ignorance is bliss," she said, "your days must be filled with joy." Audible gasps swept through the crowd. A C-SPAN camera caught one aide biting his lip, trying not to laugh. Kennedy's cheeks flushed. "This isn't about me," he said. "Oh, but it is," Crockett replied. "You made it personal the moment you questioned my intelligence." She continued, steady as a surgeon. "You represent a state that deserves answers, not arrogance, and I represent people who are tired of being underestimated." Her voice, calm and measured, struck deeper than shouting ever could. Kennedy shuffled his notes, avoiding eye contact. Crockett stood taller. "This hearing isn't about who's clever. It's about justice, and I suggest we get back to it." The chair banged the gavel, calling for order. But the chamber didn't need order. It needed oxygen. Crockett had turned the atmosphere electric. Kennedy, speechless for once, slouched slightly in his seat. She didn't gloat. She didn't need to. Her words had done what few could, render Kennedy irrelevant in his own courtroom. "Next question," she said, reclaiming the floor without breaking a sweat. Later, clips of the exchange exploded online. Twitter was ablaze. "Jasmine Crockett just ended Senator Kennedy in real time," read one viral post. Hashtags like "Not Crockett Clapback" and "Kennedy Collapse" trended within minutes. On TikTok, teenagers reenacted her lines with dramatic flair. Kennedy's press team remained silent, unsure whether to spin, explain, or disappear for the weekend. Cable networks looped the footage, pundits stunned by the sheer force of her delivery. On MSNBC, analysts praised her poise under fire. "She handled that takedown like a lawyer and a leader," one anchor said. On Fox News, hosts scrambled to defend Kennedy, but even they couldn't deny she had controlled the moment. It wasn't just political, it was cultural, seismic, unforgettable. Meanwhile, Crockett returned to her office unsmiling. "We don't celebrate putting people in their place," she told her staff. "We celebrate standing our ground." Her assistant handed her a phone showing thousands of supportive messages. Jasmine scrolled briefly, then put it down. "Let's get back to work," she said. "They'll talk, but we move forward." And just like that, she refocused. The media couldn't get enough. Editorials titled "The Rise of Jasmine Crockett" appeared across platforms. "A new voice with an old soul," one journalist wrote, but Crockett herself stayed silent on social media. No tweets, no posts, just one quiet repost, a quote from Maya Angelou: "I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. That was all. It said more than any victory lap ever could. Back at Capitol Hill, Kennedy avoided reporters. When asked if he regretted his comment, he muttered, "It's politics," and walked away. His usual bravado was missing. Something had shifted. Inside chambers, other senators took note. The rules of engagement had changed. Crockett had rewritten the script, not by yelling, but by mastering the moment. It was a lesson no one could ignore. In classrooms and coffee shops, people debated the moment. High school civics teachers played the clip. College debate teams dissected it. "She showed how intelligence isn't just knowledge," one student said. "It's knowing how to use it when it counts." Crockett, meanwhile, stayed laser-focused on her policy agenda, letting the waves swirl around her while she walked steadily ahead. Kennedy's team tried damage control. A spokesperson called it a misunderstanding. But the public wasn't buying it. "He underestimated her," one caller said on a radio show, and she handed him his own words. People admired her not just for the comeback, but for the restraint. She never yelled, never insulted back. She simply used his own arrogance as a mirror. The next session began days later. Kennedy, visibly subdued, kept his tone measured. Crockett was present but silent. The room seemed to hold its breath. When called upon, she spoke briefly, precisely, then yielded the floor. There were no fireworks, but everyone remembered the blaze. Even without words, her presence carried gravity. A new kind of respect hung in the air. Reporters cornered her outside. "Do you feel vindicated?" one asked. "No," she said. "I feel tired. Tired that women, especially black women, have to work twice as hard to be seen as half as smart." The quote went viral. Crockett didn't flinch. "I'm not here to be a moment," she added. "I'm here to build movements." And with that, she stepped into a car and disappeared from view. Kennedy tried to resume business as usual, but the stain lingered. Satirical shows mimicked the exchange. Memes flourished. One had Crockett holding a law book while Kennedy vanished in smoke. The symbolism wasn't lost. This wasn't just a rebuttal. It was a shift, one that warned others. Dismissive politics would be met with deliberate power, and power, Crockett proved, needs no permission. At the next hearing, eyes turned to Crockett before anyone else spoke. Kennedy remained cautious, offering clipped questions. Crockett answered with grace, offering facts, not barbs. But her tone had weight now. It wasn't about defending herself. It was about defending truth. And in that chamber, truth had a new advocate. Clear, unshaken, unapologetic. Jasmine Crockett didn't ask for a fight. She simply refused to back down. In doing so, she reminded the nation what dignity looks like under pressure. She reminded Kennedy, and everyone watching, that mocking someone's mind doesn't make you smart. Listening does. Understanding does. Respecting does. And when all else fails, the truth still has its own volume. In the weeks that followed, Crockett's influence surged. Invitations poured in. Interviews, panels, keynotes. She declined most. "I'm not here for the spotlight," she told her team. "I'm here for justice." But her silence only amplified the moment. Without campaigning, she became a symbol of strength, clarity, and resistance to the old games played by the political elite for too long. Kennedy, once quick to dominate with wit, now chose his words carefully. His colleagues noticed. His tone softened. Crockett had exposed more than just arrogance. She'd shown that the old tactics no longer worked against prepared, principled challengers. Quietly, other representatives began mirroring her approach. Firm, factual, fearless. It wasn't just a moment, it was a movement. The shift wasn't limited to Capitol Hill. Across the country, young women cited Crockett's performance as inspiration. "She showed me I can hold my ground," one college student said. Another wrote, "I used to shrink when challenged. Now I channel Jasmine." Empowerment moved through TikTok, YouTube, classrooms, and boardrooms. She hadn't raised her voice, yet her echo was everywhere. Late one night, alone in her office, Crockett reviewed policy drafts. A staffer entered quietly. "Ma'am, CNN's," asking again, Anderson Cooper this time. She looked up, exhausted but resolute. "Tell him I appreciate it, but tell him my answer stays the same." The staffer nodded, impressed. Crockett didn't need a camera. She had the floor, and that, she knew, was the most powerful stage of all. A journalist asked in an op-ed, "How did Kennedy lose so badly?" The answer was simple. He underestimated her. In his eyes, she was a rookie. But rookies read. They prepare, and they don't play games. Crockett hadn't aimed to win an argument. She aimed to defend her integrity. And when someone defends what they've earned, there's no comeback slick enough to undo it. The next session opened with a tribute to fallen civil rights heroes. Crockett stood silently, hand over heart. Kennedy glanced toward her but said nothing. He had learned, too late, that intelligence isn't a weapon. It's a force, a quiet, disciplined force. And in that room, the most powerful person wasn't the one with seniority. It was the one who refused to shrink in the face of mockery. Public opinion shifted. Editorials urged other leaders to speak like Crockett. Calm, composed, committed. She didn't feed chaos. She redirected it. And in doing so, she created a model for discourse, where facts matter, where dignity triumphs, where voices are not silenced by cynicism. The clip was now required viewing in debate clubs. Crockett had changed the standard. Months later, a new senator tried to interrupt Crockett mid-sentence. She raised one brow. The room paused. She didn't speak louder. She simply waited. And, as if on cue, silence fell. She continued, undeterred. It was clear she didn't need to command the room. The room now yielded to her. Power had shifted, not through volume, but through presence. Crockett's kind of power. In a televised roundtable, a moderator asked her, "What would you say to Senator Kennedy now?" She smiled faintly. "Nothing," she said, "because I already said everything I needed to, without raising my voice, without losing my purpose." The moderator blinked. "Do you regret the moment?" Crockett shook her head. "No, I regret that it still surprises people when a woman refuses to be belittled." As the camera faded to black, Crockett stood and walked off set, her heels clicking softly. She didn't need applause. She didn't wait for cheers. The country had already heard her, loud and clear, not because she shouted, but because she stood, unshaken. In a room designed to overlook her, she had become impossible to ignore. And that silence left in her wake. That was respect.